Welcome to Cheat Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. She said, "Leave if you can't handle my world." She laughed when I said okay. She rolled her eyes when I went quiet. And she was still sleeping, perfectly, carelessly asleep, when my flight left the ground at 5:42 in the morning and I flew home without looking back. My name is Jake. I'm 28. And for almost 2 years, I loved a woman named Alina in the way that only people who really, genuinely try love someone, fully, patiently, with the kind of quiet effort that never asks for applause because it doesn't think it needs to. We'd been together for almost 2 years, living together for one, and we just landed in her hometown for a long weekend, what she called a work-social crossover, what I called exhausting. Fancy dinners. People who introduce themselves with job titles instead of names. Constant, low-level commentary about who mattered and who didn't. Status performed in every sentence, every seating arrangement, every carefully chosen restaurant, and from the moment we arrived, Alina was different. Colder. Sharper. Every word she said to me felt like a test I hadn't been told I was taking. Don't say that here. Just smile. You don't need to explain yourself. God, you're being embarrassing. I absorbed it. The way I always did. Quietly, steadily, telling myself it was the pressure of her world, and she didn't really mean it, and this was just how things were when she was around these people. And then came the second dinner. I pushed back. Nothing dramatic, no raised voice, no scene. I just looked at her and said, calmly, "You don't have to talk to me like that." She looked at me. And she laughed. Not nervous, not embarrassed, just amused, like I'd said something slightly absurd. She swirled her drink, let the pause breathe, and then she said it. "This is my world. If you can't handle it, you should leave." The table went quiet. A couple of her friends exchanged glances. One of them smirked. I looked at Alina and waited. Waited for the follow-up, the softening, the just kidding that would make this something we could fold back into the evening and move past. It didn't come. So I said, "Okay." She rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic. You know what I mean." But I didn't say anything else. I paid the check. I walked back to the hotel behind her while she typed furiously on her phone, already rewriting the night, already framing it for someone else. She fell asleep fast. Easy. Like nothing had happened. I lay in the dark beside her and listened to her breathe. And I made a decision. At 3 in the morning, while she slept, I opened my banking app. Every shared card we had. Frozen, the rent card, the travel card, the emergency card, the ones she joked about forgetting to pay back on, the ones that had quietly, reliably, always just worked because I made sure they did. All of it. Frozen. At 4:15, I packed. Quietly, the practiced quiet of someone who has decided something and doesn't need to announce it. Clothes folded, toiletries in the bag, nothing left behind that I'd need to come back for. At 5 a.m., I ordered a ride. At 5:42, I was on a flight home. She was still sleeping when the wheels left the ground. Still in that hotel bed, still wrapped in the ease of someone who had never once considered that the person beside her might actually listen when she spoke. I sat in my window seat and watched the city disappear beneath the clouds. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel angry. I felt quiet. The specific quiet of a decision that has already been made and can't be unmade. I turned my phone on airplane mode. And for the first time in a very long time, nobody needed anything from me. The moment I landed, my phone came back to life like it had been holding its breath. Calls stacking up before I'd even cleared the gate. Texts arriving in rapid succession, filling the screen in real time. I sat at the gate with my bag between my feet and watched it happen, watched the story of the morning unfold through her messages without saying a single word. It started with irritation. Where are you? This isn't funny. Jake, pick up. You're being immature right now. Then it turned logistical. My card isn't working. Did you move money? The hotel says the card was declined. That's when I knew she was awake. Standing at the front desk, I imagined, in that white hotel robe. Hair still somehow styled, despite the hour. Tight smile in place. The one she used when things weren't going her way. Laughing it off. Expecting the problem to bend. It didn't bend. I finally picked up one call. Not to talk, just to hear. Are you out of your mind? Her voice hit me before I could say hello. No concern. No confusion. Just anger, sharp and immediate. The card is frozen, Jake. Fix it. I'm home, I said. A pause. A real one. The first genuine silence of the morning. What do you mean home? I took you at your word, I said. You told me to leave if I couldn't handle your world. Her voice dropped into that particular icy calm she used when she was truly furious. You don't get to decide that in the middle of my trip. I didn't, I said. You did. She laughed, sharp and disbelieving. Then the yelling started. About flights, about embarrassment, about meetings and plans and people waiting on her. Not once, not a single time, did she ask why I left. Only how it inconvenienced her. I hung up when she called me selfish. A minute later, a photo. A screenshot of the banking app. 0 access, 0 funds, and underneath it, one line of text. You better fix this before you ruin everything. I stared at the message. Then I put my phone face down. And for the first time in months, the silence felt like relief. By the time I got home, the tone of her messages had shifted completely. First, anger. Then, panic. Then, inevitably, the rewrite. She'd worked her way through irritation and logistics and finally arrived at the version of events she could live with. The one that made her right. The one that cast her as the reasonable one and me as the problem. Okay, let's calm down, she wrote. We can talk when you fix this. I didn't mean it like that. I almost laughed. I texted back short and simple. You told me to leave. I did. 3 dots appeared. You're twisting my words. You know how I talk. Everyone was drinking. There it was. The reframe. The gentle revision of history, words said in front of a table of people, clearly and deliberately, now suddenly a casualty of the wine list. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the shared accounts and started separating everything. My money back where it belonged. Automatic payments cancelled. Streaming services switched to my email. The small, quiet conveniences she'd never noticed because they'd always just existed, because I'd made them exist. 10 minutes later, she called again. I answered. Are you seriously doing this right now? She demanded. I'm at the front desk. They're asking questions. I'm sure you'll figure it out, I said. Her voice hardened. I shouldn't have to figure it out. You're my boyfriend. I paused. Were, I said. You made that pretty clear. Silence. Then quieter, and somehow more dangerous. You're going to regret this. That was the moment something snapped into place, some last remaining thread of doubt, some tiny, stubborn part of me that was still waiting for her to be the person I'd believed she was, finally, quietly, let go. Maybe, I said, but not today. She hung up. 5 minutes later, a notification. She'd tagged me in an Instagram story, a vague quote about men who can't keep up and knowing your worth. I muted her without blinking. She thought this was about control. She didn't realize yet that I'd already let go. By noon, her friends started arriving in my inbox. Not to ask what happened. To tell me what I'd done. Apparently, I was emotionally unstable. Insecure. Pulling a power move because I couldn't keep up with her world. The narrative had been written, distributed, and delivered with remarkable speed. I had to hand it to her. She was efficient. One message stood out from the rest. Short. Pointed. designed to land. She's stranded. This is cruel. You always knew how important this trip was to her. You always knew that phrase, that specific construction, like knowing was the same as agreeing to absorb whatever came with it. Around 1 o'clock, Alina called again. Her voice had shifted. Controlled now. Careful. Tactical. Okay, she said. Let's reset. You made your point. I wasn't making a point, I replied. I was listening. You're being dramatic. You know I didn't mean leave literally. That's the problem, I said. You say things you don't mean and expect people to just absorb them. She paused, then switched tracks. I'm embarrassed, Jake. People are asking why you're not here. A beat. Aren't you going to apologize? No. Her breath caught. So what, you're just done? I looked around my apartment. Quiet. Familiar. Suddenly, completely peaceful. I think I've been done longer than I realized, I said. That set her off. You think you're better than me now? You think running home makes you strong? No, I said calmly. It just makes me not miserable. She laughed, bitter, disbelieving. You'll come crawling back. You always do. That confidence, that absolute, unquestioned certainty that I would fold, told me everything I needed to know about how she had always seen me. Not as a partner, as a pattern, a behavior she had mapped and could predict and return to whenever she needed it. I'm not freezing the cards forever, I said. I'm closing shared access. You'll need to handle your own expenses. Panic bled through the anger like water through a crack. You can't do that. I didn't plan for this. I know, I said. I always did. She went quiet. Then, softer than I'd heard her all day, almost small. I need you right now. For the first time, I didn't feel pulled by it. I needed you to not treat me like an inconvenience, I said. We're even. She hung up without another word. Around 4 in the afternoon, she stopped reaching for emotion and went back to facts. They won't extend my room without a valid card. I stared at the message for a moment. Then, typed back one sentence. You'll need to put it on your own card. Her reply came instantly. I don't have one with that limit. I could picture it, perfectly, without effort. Her pacing the hotel hallway. Phone pressed to her ear. That practiced, charming smile starting to crack at the edges as the front desk staff waited politely for an answer she didn't have. Jake, be reasonable. This is humiliating. That word again. Humiliating, not confusing. Humiliating. Not painful. Humiliating. Because the only dimension in which this was real to her was the one where other people could see it. A few minutes later, a call from a number I didn't recognize. A woman's voice, careful and deliberate. Hi, this is Alina's friend. She's really upset. She didn't mean what she said. I sighed. She said it clearly, I replied. Well, relationships are about compromise. They are, I agreed. Ultimatums aren't. An awkward pause. So, are you going to help her? I thought about it. About the dinners where I'd been corrected mid-sentence. The jokes at my expense. The way she said my world, like I was a guest who needed to remember his place. No, I said. I already did. I left. I hung up before she could respond. That evening, Alina sent the first message of the day that didn't have an angle behind it. I didn't think you'd actually go. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back. Simple, honest, and final. Neither did I. That was the first true thing either of us had said all day. Night came, and she didn't stop. Calls, texts, voice notes, long paragraphs followed by single words. Please, answer me, Jake. I read them the way you read something that no longer has power over you. Noted. Set aside. Moved on. Around 10 o'clock, the message shifted again. Do you have any idea how this looks? People are talking. You could have just spoken to me like an adult. That one caught something in me. I finally replied. I did. You laughed. A long pause. Then I was drunk. I was stressed. You know how much pressure I'm under. I set my phone down and stared at the ceiling. Pressure. Always pressure. Always something large and external that explained everything and excused everything and required me to quietly, endlessly absorb the overflow. At midnight, she called again. I answered. Her voice was different this time. No edges left. No performance. Just a woman in a hotel room, alone, tired, and starting, slowly, reluctantly, to understand. I can't sleep, she said. This doesn't feel real. It is, I replied. You really left? Yes. A long pause. Then, quietly. So what am I supposed to do? That question landed differently than she probably intended. Not as manipulation, not as a play for sympathy. Just the raw, honest confusion of someone who had never once had to ask it before, because I had always been there to answer it before she finished asking. I don't know, I said gently. That's yours to figure out. She started crying. Small, quiet sounds, like she was trying not to be heard. I didn't feel hard about it. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt the sadness of something that had been broken for a long time finally being named out loud. I didn't think you'd actually walk away, she said. You always stayed. I stayed because I thought you cared, I said. Not because I couldn't leave. She went quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was flat and hollow. So that's it. You're just done. I took a breath. I think I've been done for a while, I said. I just finally caught up. She hung up without saying goodbye. And a few minutes later, one last message before the night went still. I hope you know what you're doing. I looked around my apartment, my space, my quiet, my life, and I typed back the truest thing I'd said in months. For the first time in a long time, I do. Then I put my phone down and went to sleep. She came back 2 days later. Not to talk, not to fix anything, just to collect what was hers. And I wasn't home when she arrived. That was intentional. I'd left a note on the counter with a time window and clear instructions. Boxes by the door. Closet cleared on my side. No confrontation. No audience. No room for a scene to become something she could reshape later. She texted once while she was there. This feels unreal. I read it an hour later and didn't reply. When I got back that evening, the apartment felt different. Lighter, somehow. The way a room feels when something heavy has been removed and you don't realize how heavy it was until it's gone. Her things were all missing. The shoes lined up too perfectly by the door. The makeup arranged on the bathroom shelf. The framed photos from trips she'd always said were for the aesthetic. Even the couch pillows she'd insisted on buying. Good. The last thing she left was a key. Set on the counter. Neatly. Deliberately. Like punctuation at the end of a sentence. That night she sent one final message. I didn't think telling you to leave would actually make you go. I thought you'd fight. I sat with that for a while. Then I typed back slowly. I fought by staying a year longer than I should have. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then, nothing. No more calls. No more Instagram stories. No more friends reaching out on her behalf. The noise, that constant, exhausting, low-level noise that had been the background of my life for months, finally, completely, stopped. A week later, someone asked me if I regretted it, if I wished I'd handled it differently, more gently, more gradually, given her more time to understand, more warning, more of the consideration she had never once extended to me. I thought about it honestly, the way I try to think about everything honestly now, without the filter of what I'm supposed to feel or what makes the story easier to tell. Here's what I know. I didn't leave to hurt her. That was never the point. There was no satisfaction in the frozen cards, or the empty hotel front desk, or the Instagram story she posted to people who would forget it within a week. None of that was the point. The point was simpler than any of that. When someone tells you to leave, they are telling you exactly how much space you occupy in their life, not with malice, not with calculation, just with the careless ease of someone who has never had to be careful with you, who has never had to consider the weight of what they say, because you have always, reliably, absorbed it and stayed anyway. She had a world, and in that world I was allowed in as long as I stayed quiet, as long as I smiled when she needed a prop and disappeared when I became inconvenient, as long as I never pushed back, never took up too much space, never reminded her that I was a person and not a role she'd cast and could redirect at will. I had tried for 2 years to be enough of what she needed, while slowly, quietly losing track of what I needed. And then one dinner, one sentence, said with a laugh and a swirl of a drink in front of people who smirked at my expense, finally gave me permission I hadn't known I'd been waiting for. She thought she was dismissing me. She was actually setting me free. The quiet after everything settled was strange at first, not peaceful, not immediately, just empty. The way a room sounds different after furniture is moved, the same space, but the acoustics have changed. My ears were still adjusting to the absence of a voice that had spent 2 years telling me what I was and wasn't, what fit and what didn't, whose world was worth belonging to. I made coffee in the morning and drank it slowly, without checking my phone first, without mentally preparing for whatever tone the day was going to bring. I ran along the waterfront in the early hours when the city was still quiet, and there was something almost ridiculous about how good it felt. Just moving, just breathing, not managing anything except the distance between steps. Small things, real things. Things that belonged entirely to me. I don't know what became of Alina in any detailed way. I've heard fragments, a new dynamic, a smaller social circle, some of the shine gone from the world she'd worked so hard to perform for. I don't wish her pain. I want to be clear about that. Whatever she became after that weekend, that's hers to navigate. The same way figuring out how to be alone in a hotel room with a declined card and no one to call was hers to navigate. What I know is this. I spent almost 2 years believing that loving someone meant making yourself smaller so they could feel larger. That patience was the same as acceptance. That staying, through the sharpness, through the corrections, through the careful public humiliations disguised as jokes, was a form of loyalty worth something. It wasn't. It was just habit wearing the costume of love. She thought her world was something I was lucky to be allowed into. She thought the door was hers to open and close, and I was on the outside, waiting. Turns out, I was the one holding the door the whole time. And when I finally stepped through it and let it close behind me, her world didn't collapse. It just kept going. Smaller, maybe. A little less certain of itself. But going. And mine started. Not dramatically, not with some sudden cinematic clarity, just slowly, quietly, the way things grow when they finally have enough light and enough room, and nobody telling them they don't belong. She told me to leave. I said okay. And for the first time in a very long time, okay was exactly the right answer. Thank you for watching.